Canada just got ranked the most respected country in the world. Woohoo! And meanwhile, the US is breaking records too. Political violence, finger pointing, and a government that can't agree on lunch, let alone policy. Congrats, neighbors. You've got the gold medal in chaos.
And the blame game was in full swing down south. Before the shooter was even caught, Donald Trump went on camera saying, and I quote, "The radical left was directly responsible for the terrorism we are seeing in our country today." Then he promised, and I quote again, to beat the hell out of the radical left lunatics. Nothing like calling for more violence while pretending to condemn violence.
Contrast that with Canada, where leaders who usually can't stand each other are actually finding common ground. Our neighbors are tearing themselves apart and we're, dare I say, starting to pull together?
Hey everyone, welcome back and thanks for spending part of your Sunday with us. If you're new here, welcome to the channel where we break down politics that affect Canada with a bit of our signature sass.
And today we're talking about what happens when a country pulls together instead of tearing itself apart. Spoiler, looks a lot like Canada right now. The US is busy eating itself alive. Political debates don't end in solutions anymore. Instead, they end in blame, yelling, and hashtags. One side calls it war, the other calls it fake news, and at the end of the day, nothing actually gets fixed.
Meanwhile, Canada just got ranked the most loved country on the planet. And no, it's not because of beavers or bilingual road signs. It's because, against all odds, we're actually showing a little unity.
Case in point? Danielle Smith. Yes, that Danielle Smith. She said Mark Carney's plan was the most common ground she's ever had with a prime minister. Did pigs just fly over Alberta?
I think so, Dave. Compare that to the US, where the common ground there is what they use as fertilizer for the next shouting match. In Canada, all leaders are finally realizing that maybe pulling together beats tearing each other apart. And while America is in turmoil, Canada's actually moving forward. Mark Carney's heading to Mexico for trade talks, showing we're not sitting around waiting for Trump's next tariff circus to roll into town. We're building new alliances before the storm even lands. Because in Canada, the only thing we like crashing is a backyard barbecue.
I agree with that. And at home, Carney rolled out his Major Projects initiative this week. 5 massive projects that together are expected to pump more than $60 billion into the economy and create tens of thousands of jobs. We're talking LNG expansion in BC, new nuclear reactors in Ontario, a bigger container terminal in Montreal, and a new mining project in Saskatchewan and also in northern BC.
Wow, that's energy, trade, and infrastructure. Projects that actually move the economy. They're not just talking points. And you may have noticed there wasn't a pipeline on the list. Now, normally that would send Alberta into orbit. But Danielle Smith, she's still encouraged. She literally said it's the most common ground she's ever had with a prime minister.
When Danielle Smith is clapping along with Wab Kinew and Doug Ford about federal economic policy, well, that's not just rare, that's practically a Canadian miracle.
It's a miracle, Dave.
It is.
And those 5 big projects are just the start. They're like the appetizer. And Ottawa's already teasing what could be on the plate next. Atlantic wind power, carbon capture in Alberta, upgrades to the port of Churchill, new northern all-weather roads, even a Toronto-Quebec City high-speed rail. Could it be true?
I guess so. Those are the kinds of long game ideas that made premiers at every stripe sit up and take notice. And it explains why even Danielle Smith, normally the loudest federal critic in the room, is suddenly finding common ground.
But here's the challenge. These mega projects take years to deliver. Canadians don't live in the long term, they live right now, with rising costs and layoffs hitting hard.
And that's where Carney's short-term play really matters. Things like stabilizing trade with Mexico and China, providing targeted support for tariff-hit industries, and making sure retraining programs are ready before workers are left behind.
While Carney's already working on the global side of the equation, he's heading for Mexico for trade talks, and he's making sure Canada has strong partners lined up before Trump's tariffs roll into town.
And just this week, Ottawa wrapped up talks with China over those punishing 75% duties on Canadian canola. Now, nothing is solved yet, and we won't know the final decision until next year, but the key is that dialogue is happening. Carney's not sitting back, he's pushing for solutions.
And that's how he keeps his popularity. By showing people he's not just dreaming about the future, he's managing the present. So he needs to show people that he's working both ends, the long game and the day-to-day fights that matter right now. Canadians will give you the time to build the long game just as long as you've got their back today.
And it's not just theory. Wab Canoe says he's already seeing growth in Manitoba directly because of these initiatives. That's proof on the ground that this isn't just lip service, it's actually working.
And Canadians are noticing. Carney's personal approval is sitting at 66%, while Poilievre stuck under 50%. That's not a gap, Dave, that's a canyon.
And why do you think that is? Well, it's because Carney's offering something Canadians haven't felt in years: predictability. People are tired of waking up to chaos, tariffs, and Twitter rants from down south. They want calm, steady leadership that doesn't turn every issue into a fire drill.
Hey, it's not flashy and it's not dramatic, and that's exactly why it's popular. After years of division and disruption, Canadians are leaning into a leader who builds confidence instead of all that chaos.
The Liberals are leading nationally by 8 points, with big margins in BC, Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces. Heck, even business owners are leaning Liberal these days, and that's not exactly a crowd known for hugging prime ministers.
That's what's happening when you find the middle ground. People actually want to stand on it with you.
Imagine that. Here's the thing, while premiers of every stripe are lining up on Team Canada, well, there's still one person holding back. Guess who? Pierre Poilievre.
He still keeps painting Canada like it's on the brink of collapse, warning about security threats and trying to make people afraid. So let's be clear, Pierre. This isn't the USA. Our politics don't have to run on constant fear. Canadians aren't looking for paranoia, they're looking for solutions.
And let's not forget, Poilievre still refuses to even apply for federal security clearance. Yet, he's the one lecturing everyone about national security. That's like trying to teach swimming lessons when you haven't even passed the shallow end test.
And let's be crystal clear here. Yes, politicians deserve to feel safe. Nobody should ever face threats or harassment. So where was that respect when the trucker convoy forced Trudeau's family out of their home for safety? Protesters were waving swastikas, Confederate flags, and signs carrying F Trudeau, Hang Trudeau, and they were even dragging nooses through the street.
Ottawa police reported threats against officials, and Trudeau himself said his family had to be moved to a secure location. That was real intimidation. And where was Pierre Poilievre? Oh right, he was out serving donuts.
And now, Parliament is back on Monday. So which version of Poilievre will show up? The critic, the scaremonger, or maybe, just maybe, a leader who offers an actual plan? Don't hold your breath.
I'm certainly not. Because after 20 years in politics, Poilievre's playbook hasn't changed. Attack, attack, attack. He's already called Carney's first 150 days in office a failure. He's dismissed crime proposals as weak and waved his arms about a country in crisis. But never ever does he tell Canadians what he'd actually do differently.
Meanwhile, Carney's been governing. He's cutting middle-class taxes, axing GST for first-time homebuyers, eliminating the carbon tax, launching major projects, and tearing down interprovincial trade barriers. It's not flashy, that's for sure. It's the unglamorous work of running a G7 nation, the work of a builder, not a critic.
And guess what? Even with Trump's tariffs hanging over us, Bloomberg reports that Canada's growth forecasts are now set to outpace the US. Sure, we hit a rough second quarter, but Canada's banks have crushed expectations and momentum is shifting in our favor. That's not luck, that's smart management.
That's the big difference. One guy builds, the other guy heckles, and Canadians can see the difference clear as day.
And here's our take. If Poilievre would actually support good ideas and work with others, he'd probably be more popular, right? Canadians notice when leaders put the country first, not themselves.
Doug Ford is proof of that. He's managed to win over Liberals, NDPs, Independents, heck, even us. And that's because he knows when to put the elbows down and actually cooperate.
Canadians respect collaboration. Being the loudest critic in the room does not win you points. Showing you can work together? Well, that does.
And that's the lesson Poilievre never seems to learn. Canadians want leaders, not hecklers. It's no accident Canada ranks so high when people talk about us. We've built a reputation on things people everywhere want. Free healthcare, a strong standard of living, and a sense that no matter how messy politics get, we're still in this together. We are a country that still believes compromise is a strength, not a weakness.
And right now, while the US is doubling down on division, Canada's proving that unity actually works. We stand up to Trump when others cave. Even Glenn Close, yes, that Glenn Close, said at TIFF this week, the best thing about Canada is that we stand up to you-know-who.
Hey, we're not perfect, but we're showing what's possible when leaders choose collaboration over conflict. That's the Canada people respect, and it's the Canada we need to keep building.
So, if you believe in that Canada like we do, a Canada that stands strong, united, and respected, join us. Become part of the A-Team, our YouTube membership. It helps us keep pushing back against division and amplifying Canadians' voice.
And make sure to hit that subscribe button, share this video with your friends, and let's keep proving that Canada can lead with unity while others fall apart. Canada is just getting started and the world is watching.
See you next week.